Cool rational thought versus hot emotionalism. Cool rational thought versus hot emotionalism. Stand by for a scientific psychological demonstration to show the truth of this. First, some words of introduction are necessary to set the demonstration up. On CBC's cross-country checkup for November 22nd, 2015, the subject was, "What are you planning to do to welcome the refugees?" Thankfully, some cool voices of reason were allowed to express their concerns about the refugees being safe enough to welcome. The others were all out of breath with plans to lavish the risky strangers with loving acts of kindness. The call that won the crown for emotional irrationality was by an old woman who communicated the following. "We always have room. We're all refugees." You could just see her sitting in her cozy condo with her knitting materials on her lap while she said this, all tucked in with her Afghan beside her liberal radio. Chances are she does not circulate much anymore, and so she likely will never reap the negative rap that refugees will wreak. Using my impression of this deluded woman, I will now present the two sides of this debate concerning Islamic terrorism. Up in Canada, conservative is blue while liberal is red. If you're an American, pretend the colors are reversed. The hot emotional mind of liberalism will speak on the one side, and the cool rational thought of conservatism will speak on the other. The marshmallows represent the brains of each. The excited, overheated liberal brain, sizzling with fanatical fervency, and the calm, analytical, conservative brain, logically weighing the facts and figures. So let's hear from the hot-headed liberal progressives. Here we go. The enemy, if there is one, is called Daesh. This tragedy that some call Islamic terrorism has nothing to do with Islam, because Islam is a religion of peace. The killers are killing because of poverty. The war in Syria was caused by a drought, and the drought was caused by global warming. If they continue to kill, it's because we're not sharing the wealth. We should trust the liberal government to screen the 25,000 Syrian refugees properly because of all the good work they've done before. Receiving Muslims from Syria will go a long way to dissolving the present scourge of terrorism going on overseas. Drones make the most cowardly weapons of all. Whatever happens, the Muslim refugees will like us liberals because we, the free-thinking progressives, we are the ones mostly responsible for welcoming them with open arms and without judging. About the Daesh tragedies that are going on, our motto is, keep calm and carry on. And let me be clear, we always have room. We're all refugees. Look at the liberal socialist brain after all that rationalizing. Atrophied, wasted, burned out, unwilling to identify the enemy, utterly clueless on how to defeat it. Now let's hear from cool-headed realist conservatives. The enemy is ISIS and other warring Islamic factions, which are made up of Muslims who practice what their book teaches. This terrorism has a lot to do with Islam because the Islamic book tells Muslims to kill the infidels, and the killers admit that this is why they are on the rampage. Muslims do not lash out because they are poor, but because their book gives them a mandate to kill infidels, and Muslim terrorists even testify that this is the case. We would continue to be casualties even if we gave the Muslims more money, because their mandate to murder is the issue, not poverty. We should not trust the Liberal government to give 25,000 Syrian refugees a proper screening in just a few months, because it usually takes 10 months to screen one single prospective citizen, and the Liberals have a lousy record. The truth is, much of the screening will have nothing to do with official documents and background checks. For many, the screening will be reduced to verbal statements and maybe promises. That is the only way we'll get thousands of refugees through the door in just a few months. Receiving Muslims from Syria will not contribute to solving the scourge of Islamic fundamentalism. Instead, it will spread terrorism around, and it will cost Canadian lives. Suicide vests targeting casual citizens make the most cowardly weapons, not drones that aim for diabolical terrorists. Do not think that Muslim terrorists will spare the liberal progressives who defend Islam. They did not spare them in Lebanon in the 70s and 80s. They did not spare them in New York on 9/11. They did not spare them in Madrid in 2004. They did not spare them in London in 2005. They did not spare them in Paris in 2015. They will not spare them in Canada either. Our motto is, freedom is in peril, defend it with all your might. And let me be clear, we do not have room for even one Islamic terrorist, and we are not refugees. Some of us are Indians, others are immigrants, and this nation would still be a desolate, savage land if not for the fact that the best of us are descended from law-abiding, hard-working settlers. Look at the conservative, capitalist brain after coolly reasoning things out, intact, robust, ready to take on the challenge at hand, which is identify the enemy, close with the enemy, and destroy the enemy by whatever means necessary.